I want to talk about in depth the structure of belief systems. And
we don't. Because it makes the belief more resistance prone.
Well, let me ask you this then. Are beliefs the root that kind of colors our life experience?
A belief is a thought that you keep thinking. So it's a habit of thought. And
Right.
for that reason, it certainly does affect your experience because you can't create outside of your beliefs. If you believe in your unworthiness, you cannot get in the vortex. No one can believe in their unworthiness and get in the vortex. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting in light of the conversation we just had? I want to believe what Christ said about me. But as long as I revere him as holy or enlightened, and in the comparative way I see myself not there, then I use something inside the vortex and its comparison of me to hold me outside the vortex. Go figure. Another flawed premise, you see.
So where are our habitual thoughts coming from? They're coming from somewhere.
They are not coming from anywhere. What happens is every thought that has ever been thought still exists.
Okay.
That's like saying, turning your radio on and hearing a song and saying, where is that song coming from? And your friend who knows about radios would say, well, this tuner's tuned to that. And you say, no, where is it coming from? And your friend would say, well, there's a transmitter that is transmitting it, and this tuner's on the same signal, and so there's a connection. And you say, yeah, that's what I mean. Where is it coming from? Where did the stream of thought come from? And we say, a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking, 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 that you keep thinking. We could go on. That you keep thinking. So just don't keep thinking it. Or pay attention to how it feels and think it into a better feeling place, you see.
Sure.
So that's why we were playing with you a bit, but stubborn about not making beliefs structures, because they're not. It's just an activated thought in the moment. See, right here and now is where all of your power is. And it's the power of aligning with who you are or not. In other words, that's the power to align or not, to allow, to resist. So if you are deliberately focusing, like our friend does with his camera for beautiful things, if you're deliberately focusing with the intention of alignment, you have so much more flexibility. Where if you're sorting out thoughts, the thought will hold you in disconnection. So where do the beliefs come from that keep me chronically out of my vortex? Is that a good question?
Yes.
Where do the beliefs come from that hold me out of the vortex? CNN? Fox News? MSNBC? ABC? NBC? CBS?
So would this analogy be correct then? Like the initial idea that we think is similar to a seed, and as we continue to think that thought or thoughts like it, we continue to nurture and water that seed.
Yes, but out of every thought that has ever been thought, do you know that when you think, here it is, when you think a thought of enormous lack, you launch an equivalent thought of enormous abundance. In other words, and so every thought that you think has a counter thought to it, and Source always embraces the positive counter thought. So now let's come back to the basis of your question. We really like this unfolding here.
Me too.
So what we just said to you is you are carving out expansion. And we've been saying all day to you that Source is expanding because of that. So now ask your question about this thought. Ask your question about where does this thought, how did this stream of thought get there? Through life, through asking. So every thought that's ever been thought still exists. So let's say that there are a lot of people worried about global warming. There are a lot of people worrying about planet in peril. There are a lot of people worrying about financial disasters. A lot of people worrying about a lot of things. And every time they worry, they offer a thought about it. And that thought is alive. That thought, first you think the thought and then the thought thinks, because it's just vibration, you see. So now law of attraction is causing a coalescing of those thoughts. And so now there are rivers and streams of worrisome thoughts, just like there's this vortex of well-being and this vortex of expansion and this vortex of who you really are. There's these rivers and streams. There's these thoughts of unwanted things. So did you just think all that up just now? No. But if you are not in this moment, somehow by virtue of something that you're giving your attention to, if you haven't activated within yourself something that matches some of that, then you don't have access to any of that. But when you do activate something within yourself, then you have access to that. And that's why sometimes it feels like the thought or the belief is pulsing bigger in you in a moment than it really deserves. People will say, it feels like the thoughts are thinking me. And we say, no, you just tuned into them. You tuned into them, but you have a choice in every moment, whether to tune into those thoughts and feel the discord, or to tune into these thoughts and feel the accord, the alignment, you see.
Many times it seems as though we fall kind of into an unconscious pattern where you talk about habitual thoughts, and that sometimes it feels like we're on autopilot.
Well, you are. All of those words are right, and we only want to interrupt you briefly because we want to hear the rest of that sentence. But that's just lazy.
Right, exactly.
It's creating by default. In other words, and what it really is, it's enduring my emotions, which are telling me that I'm doing that. And it's just putting up with being ornery, or putting up with it.
And so that unconscious pattern.
But let's not call it unconscious, because as long as you're feeling emotion around it, it's big enough. If it's big enough that it's giving you an emotional response, it's not unconscious. And if it's so small you're having no emotional response, it's not a player anyway.
Is it possible to be unaware of the emotions that those thoughts are creating?
It is. It's possible to become so accustomed to feeling like that you don't even realize that something's wrong. But what happens is, you were born knowing this zest for life, and you've missed it ever since you lost that. And every now and again, something wonderful will distract you, and you'll feel it, and then you'll long for it again. In other words, that's why with each person that sat in the hot seat, as we were feeling for resonance of inside the vortex, you witnessed how sort of hard it was for them at first. But once they felt it, you knew they felt it. And once you actively, consciously feel your alignment with Source, now it's more approachable. It is more active within you. So now it's easier for you to find it. That's really why we teach meditation. It's easier to teach you to have no thought than to have pure positive thought on just about every subject. So if we can coach you into quieting your mind by getting you to focus on your breathing, or listening to a faucet, or listening to a dripping faucet, or watching the flickering of flame, something that requires a little thought but not much. If we can get you to distract yourself by focusing upon something like that, so that you release the thought that holds the resistance, your vibration will raise, and you'll feel the feeling of well-being, of connection. In other words, meditation is a process that takes you inside the vortex.
So
and once that happens, then you're less likely to be unaware of the next negative emotion.
And that's why all of our power is in the now.
Yes, because right now you can focus into or out of the vortex, into alignment or out of alignment.
Which takes us in a
closer,
direction.
closer, further.
Got it.
And you can feel, even with some of the conversations we had today in the hot seat, you saw how people are sort of practiced at arguing for their limitations. But it never feels good, and we don't let any of them get away with it.
So belief, you say, is a thought you keep thinking.
Just a habit of thought.
Habit of thought. And when you continue to think a thought, more thoughts that are like it attract to it.
Yes, so let's back up a little bit. So a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. So when you think a thought for as little as 17 seconds, now it kicks into higher gear and another thought like it will come. And about then, you're starting to feel something around it. But if you aren't, don't worry. Another thought like it will come, until with as little time as 68 seconds, now there's enough momentum with that thought that you're having an experience, an emotional experience, because the relationship between who you really are and who you're being in this moment is now kicked into high enough gear that you can feel it. Now, when that happens, no matter what, at all times, whatever you're living in a moment, and what you're feeling is certainly part of what you're living, whatever's going on in any moment is an indication of the mix of those vibrations. So your vibrational indicator is what's manifesting. So can you feel how your vibrational indicator at first is an emotion, maybe a slight feeling of uneasiness, but you don't notice it, as you say. You wanted to call it unconscious. We don't, but unawareness. People say it came out of the blue, and we say, no, it came out of the oblivious. In other words, you're oblivious to the way you're feeling. So you feel a little uncomfortable, but you're used to it, so you let it stay, and you stay focused. Well, when you stay focused, you just launch more rockets, and as you launch more rockets, the vortex calls you in a stronger way, so now the emotion is kicked up a notch, and let's say you still don't notice it. So you still don't notice it, you still don't know what's going on, but the discomfort causes you to ask still further until the stakes just get higher and higher and higher. But let's say that you're so accustomed to thinking thoughts that don't feel good, and you live in a world where so many people do it, where complaining is the mode and blaming is the mode, that you almost feel like you're like goofy if you don't complain, because almost everybody is. And so you keep doing it even though it doesn't feel good. And you keep doing it even though it doesn't feel good. And now manifestations are coming on pretty strong that show you that you're out of sync. And one of the first, many of them come, but one of the first ones that gets most people's attentions is their body begins to break down in some way as nothing more than an indicator of discord, you see. So it doesn't matter at what point you become consciously aware that you're out of whack. One of the things we love about these seminars is once you attend something like this and listen to us harp on and on all day about being in the vortex, you'll never, we promise you, ever be out of the vortex again and not know it. You will never, none of you ever be able to be, as our friend is describing you, as unaware of what your vibrational mix is. And that's such a good thing. People often say, Abraham, is it normal for all hell to break loose in one's life when they begin doing this work? And we say, yes, because you're going to become aware of where you stand in relationship with who you are, you see. And until you are aware of that, you can't consciously do anything about it.
So belief is a thought you keep thinking, and more thoughts like it will be attracted to it. The thoughts then create emotion, correct?
The emotion is... Let us back up just a little bit and say there are many thoughts you keep thinking and beliefs you hold that are inside the vortex beliefs. In other words, all beliefs aren't bad beliefs. So when a belief is activated and it's in alignment with what you really know and who you really are, now the emotion, because there's no separation between you and you, feels like joy, love, appreciation, vitality. So the emotion is the indicator of the mix of vibration. The emotion indicates the mix of vibration between me and me, who I really am and who I am as I think this thought. For example, Source adores you. When you're mad at you, big conflict. Source adores others. When you blame them, big conflict. Source knows who you are and all that you've become. When you doubt that you can do it, big conflict. Source has seen your abundance. Source knows your vibrational escrow. When you worry where it is or wonder why you don't have it, big conflict, negative emotion.